We start with our guest, DeRay Mckesson, Black gay man, leading activist in the Black Lives Matter and related movements over the last few years. DeRay, you spent more than a year in Ferguson, Missouri, working on that case of Michael Brown being murdered by police. As you look at what's going on now, what are you seeing and what are you feeling?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of what I saw last time. I'm seeing people offer platitudes and not plans. I'm seeing how political leaders talk about all the things everybody else can do and none of the things that they can do. So what we know is that the police have actually killed more people since the protest, not less. That a third of all the people killed by a stranger in the United States is actually killed by a police officer. And that's just untenable, which is why there's so much unrest in the streets.
And I have to say that I'm particularly struck by the urgent marshaling of the entire armed forces, police departments, and everything else to deal with protesters, and yet we are still just barely on the verge of charging those officers in Minnesota, and none of the officers in years gone by who have murdered people.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where when we were in the street in 2014, people were like, y'all are being dramatic, that the police don't really do these things. You're being dramatic. And what is important about this moment is that everybody's seeing it again in real time. It's not just St. Louis. It's not just DC. It's not just New York. It's all over the country. We're seeing the police tear gas and shoot rubber bullets at reporters. We're seeing the police in Atlanta bust open car doors and drag people out. You actually get to see this in real time. So it's not, activist DeRay who is frustrated with the police, had a bad interaction. This is everybody. This is actually the way that they behave. And there's a part of me that is happy that people are able to see it so clearly, like we saw it so clearly in 2014.
So is this the confluence of phones being immediately available to show this stuff, the current intense panic over the coronavirus, and the horror of the administration of Donald Trump? Are these factors coming together to bring us to this point?
Yeah, and COVID, right? What does it mean when everybody's home, record unemployment? So, one of the ways the protests might sort of fizzle out is people got to go back to work. But there's a lot of people that don't have to go back to work, right? Because the federal government didn't even prioritize unemployment, didn't prioritize a host of things. So it's and no business are open. It's not like you can, leave and then go to the party or nothing's open, right? So it really is a perfect storm in a way that is forcing these issues about race and justice to come to the fore.
Yes, they're ready to, send out the U.S. Army, because of some people robbing some stores, whereas we just had the federal legislation that basically passed all the wealth onto the corporations and left us holding, $1,200 if we were lucky.
Yeah, so I think that there's frustration about all of that. I think that all boils over into the street, and that's real, it is, people are frustrated. The last time I was outside, it was a lot of young people, much younger than were out, 4 or 5 years ago. And that's actually really beautiful. It's beautiful to see people realize that, or have that moment of ownership that, the country has to be better, that they don't want to grow up in a country that looks like this right now. And that the only way it'll be better is if we fight for it.
And it is exciting to see that and to see how widespread the anger is and how determined people are to make things different and to see it across a lot of boundaries. It's all right, I know. I've already seen you twice on MSNBC today.
I know. I am I went to sleep at 5 a.m. I had to wake up at 7. I am I'm burning it at both ends. You're about to hear I haven't eaten today, and it's early, so I put the I preheated the oven so I could heat up this thing.
Yeah.
I have to take it out of the oven, so you might get a little beep go off because it'll burn the apartment down.
Eat something, take a nap. But I see people operating across a lot of communities, and I'm excited by that. But I'm a lot older than you, and I am a little scared of this energy dissipating and of the hammer coming down from people in power to stop this. And they tend not to back off. They tend to keep at it until they've hammered us down.
Yeah, I think that in 2014, I'll never forget Brene Brown the amazing thinker and an academic, she said to me, she was like, DeRay, you got to figure out how to build a critical mass, right?
Yes.
And what's sort of powerful about this moment is that sorry, that's the timer for the thing. I need to turn it off. Just need to turn it off so I don't burn down the...
Hey, it's an informal show. Don't worry.
Here we go. Okay. Don't want to burn that house. I'm back. Okay. So she was
put up a shot at your book.
Right. She was like, you need to. She's like, you need to figure out how to build a critical mass, and we changed the conversation about race and justice in the country in 2014. We did, and that was really beautiful. This moment is a little different because I see people who never posted about race, never posted about justice, never posted about the police. Like, they're doing it now, and I think that we actually are reaching the critical mass. The test of this moment is, can we organize, right?
Yes.
We point people to a direction that will lead to substantive systemic change for the future. Like, that's really the test of this moment. And I'm really hopeful, you know, like I am. I like believe that this is possible. I believe that we'll be able to figure out how to organize. I believe that people are hungry for like something to do, and we are trying to offer that for people.
Do you, do you see any critical mass assembly around real structural change in the way we're governed in this country? Because, we keep trying to put a square peg in a round hole. We've got a racist Senate. We've got a racist electoral college. If we don't change those things, how are we going to really change the power structure and get the things that the majority of the people want in this country?
Yeah, so remember, we think about these problems as present, not permanent, right? Hunger is present, not permanent. Poverty is present, not permanent. All of these, police violence are present, not permanent. So the hard part about what our work is that we are always telling a story about a world that we know is possible, but we've never seen before, right? So I'm telling a story about a world where every kid has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I've not lived in that world. I'm telling a story about a world where the police don't kill people. I'm telling a story about a world where we think about safety beyond policing. I've not lived in those worlds, but I know they are possible. So when I think about this idea of like, how do we point people to the structure? Part of it is like reframing the question for people. So, people ask me all the time, they're like, are you saying that the police should never kill somebody? And I ask them, when should the police kill your child? Right?
Yeah.
Like, when is it okay for a police officer to put a bullet through your child's head? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, well, if you don't know, then I don't know either, right? Like, we're trying to like reframe this conversation for people so that they enter in a different way and they leave in a different way. The second is that we actually just know more about the police and the systems than we ever knew before. And that's actually really powerful. We know about the police union contracts. We just know more than we ever knew. And I am always sort of encouraged about how we can use data to convince people who probably were unconvinced before. And the third thing that keeps me hopeful is, people are paying attention differently this time. In 2014, people were learning. It was like a real learning moment. People were like, everybody was like, I don't understand. Da, da, da. Now people learn, they are ready to do something. And like, how do we put them in a position to do something is the task of the organizers.
Do you see folks coalescing around any particular immediate goal? I mean, I see headlines about defund police. What do you see emerging as like, if the government was going to respond and do something that might show that, yeah, we're serious about change, what would it be?
So we are actually, we just put out a platform called 8 Can't Wait. So what we know that we didn't know before is that there are these 8 policies that are use of force, the use of force policies, that when they are combined, it leads to a 72% reduction in police violence. They are simple, but not small. And simple in the sense that it's things like banning chokeholds and strangleholds. It's things like making sure that we exhaust all other means, that the police have to exhaust all other means before they use any deadly force, making sure that they have to report when they wave their gun at somebody, or when they point their gun or threaten to point their gun at somebody, making sure they can't shoot into moving vehicles, right? These are simple solutions, but the impact is not small. These are huge in terms of impact. So that actually is a coalescing right now. That's trending on Twitter. 8 Can't Wait. We're trying to create a critical mass right now where police departments and mayors enact these policies. And that is really an immediate thing that can happen. It's one of many things that can happen. And that's where we're putting our energy to begin.
How does your experience as a Black gay man play into this and the work you're doing?
Yeah, so I am sensitive to the power of community. I'm sensitive to what it means to be from a marginalized community within a marginalized community. It has made me more empathetic and helped me understand how to build relationships with people, because I know what it means to be invisible in some ways, you know. The other thing is that it's made me sensitive to realize what the data doesn't capture. So we should have better data about the way that gay, queer, trans, bi people are targeted and what that means, and the way the system does protect our community and doesn't protect our community. It's made me more sensitive about how we understand what solidarity looks like and doesn't look like. So there are a lot of people who don't like gay people but like me, right? And it's like that actually isn't a win. That's still homophobia. There are people who have a lot to work on, and it's been interesting to be in the civil rights space because there are people who are like, DeRay, you need to focus on being Black. You need to not focus on being gay. Like, put that aside. Like, we just need to focus on one issue. And how do we remind people that I show up as a whole person every single time? That I don't like put one part of me away to go into the meeting. Like, I show up as a whole person, and that's actually what justice means. So I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot, certainly since 2014, and it is. I have a lot more to do. I'm excited about like what comes next.
I heard you say that we've seen an historic decrease in crime during the COVID-19 crisis, but no let up in police killing.
Yeah, no let up. So yeah, no, it's like literally it's straight. It's like a straight line. We look at the chart and it's like you put 20, the Washington Post has a chart. It's like you put 2019 up and you put 2020 and it is like literally same number, same rate, same, which is wild.
There's also the racial disparities, obviously, in the COVID-19 crisis. I have to say now, Ann and I are a little older, and we've participated in a lot of demonstrations, including a lot of Black Lives Matter demonstrations. We're a little nervous about going out into a throng right now. I see most of the people out there are young. I know some older people. Are you concerned about another wave of COVID because so many people are getting out there to gather? Has that been talked about in the groups at all? I mean, Ann and I both fought for the right to First Amendment expression during this crisis if we did it safely, and I see everybody wearing masks, but what's your concern about that?
I'm not a public health expert. I as somebody who had COVID and lost my sense of taste and smell for 5 weeks, I'm sensitive to what the virus does to people, sensitive to the way that it changes people's, the way people move through the world. I am now negative for COVID, but I will tell you that my taste and smell still sort of comes, it's not what it used to be. So I live with it. It's one of those things where I think people are going to be safe out in the streets. I've seen a lot of people with masks. I've seen a lot of people be really thoughtful about how they interact with other people, no hugs, stuff like that. So I think people are safe. And, the system wants us to have to choose how we risk our life one way or the other. And we're like, you know what? I'm going to manage my own risk, right? You want us to stay inside so we don't say anything about the injustices that you're putting in community, and we're not going to do that. But we are going to keep really focused,
I think that's a great way of putting it. I am both heartened by things like New York City bus drivers who refuse to take arrested protesters off to jail, and appalled by police who stand up and say, how dare protesters be mean to us, and how dare they try to take the street when they are killing people on a regular basis. And yet they want the protesters to quiet down and calm down and be, obedient. It seems to me so absolutely blind to the reality of the demands and the situation.
Yeah, it is one of those things that, I'm always shocked at how much of an uphill battle this is, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is really simple. This is really common sense. So it's interesting. I am hopeful though. Like, I'm not a pessimist. I am hopeful because my life has shown me that this is like a way to do it. My life has shown me that standing in the street matters. My life has shown me that pushing and pressing and fighting will yield the results, and that is really dope.
Well, and your book is about hope.
It is, yeah. It's about this idea that like we can do this, right? That like present not permanent, I believe. I also know, like, both of my parents were addicted to drugs, and I grew up in a community of recovery. I've seen people sort of put their lives back together. I've seen communities be whole in a way that they didn't think they could. And like, that actually gives me a lot of hope, Well,
you were also quite a hero in standing up for the First Amendment in the courts. You were an organizer of a protest at the Baton Rouge Police Department in 2016, and an officer police officer says he got hit by an object by somebody in the crowd there. They never found the person, and they want to prosecute you for this and subject you to all kinds of liability. And yet the Fifth Circuit said, yeah, you're guilty. And then somebody switched their vote. Where does that case stand now?
So we're appealed to the Supreme Court. We are going to find out, the Supreme Court is making decisions about what cases they're going to hear every Monday. So we're waiting, like every Monday at like 9:30, we like sort of look and see if we are on the docket, but we're waiting,
Okay.
A wild case.
Well, and are you finding this life as gratifying as we find protest and independence?
Yeah, I am like a whole lot of things at once. I'm overwhelmed. I'm very busy. I am blessed to be around a set of people that I really do love to work with, and we have amazing relationships. I am not sleeping as much as I want to. I need to call my nephew back, who is 7, who called me last night when I was like delirious and wanted to talk about the protest because he finally sort of gets it, and I felt so bad because I like couldn't string a sentence together. He was like, Uncle DeRay, he was so cute. He was like, I want to wear my Black Lives Matter shirt, and I'm like, literally, I cannot get words out. I'm like, I love you, Isaac. So I got to call him back today. So it's just been, it's been a lot, and I'm proud that we stay focused on the workaround solutions, that we know what solutions are.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us at a time when you are so, busy. Let's just put it that way. We really appreciate the work you're doing and that you have always done, and we're certainly on board, and let's keep this going.
And DeRay, if you would we'll put it in our email, but if you would just announce a website that people could go to if they want to get connected to your work.
It's the number 8, 8can'twait.org, 8can'twait.org.
Okay.